What would you do for $40 billion, friends? Kidnap a president? Start a war? Chokehold the global energy supply? Murder children? Because those are all on the list for the 15 richest oil barons who bankroll the current American government. This file showed up at my door naked and holding its own receipts. I'm Alexa Jones. This is Underground Globalist News. Tonight, my frequency followers, I'm broadcasting from an oil drum I hollowed out behind a Corpus Christi refinery because I wanted to be close to the crime scene. We have been following the money, not the ideology, not the rhetoric, the money. Because the money has a smell, and the smell is methane, and the methane leads to a very specific zip code on the Texas coast. Listen close, my hydrocarbon hostages. In April 2024, Trump held a dinner at Mar-a-Lago with the top executives of the American oil and gas industry. And at that dinner, on the record, reported by multiple outlets, investigated by the House Oversight Committee, he asked them for $1 billion in campaign contributions. $1 billion, folks. And in exchange, he promised to fast-track their entire wish list. That is not my framing. That is what happened. The Washington Post reported it. The Brennan Center documented it. Congressional Democrats sent subpoenas over it. A sitting presidential candidate asked the fossil fuel industry for $1 billion and told them what they would get in return. And then he won. And then they got it. All of it. Let's start with the donors. Kelcy Warren, CEO of Energy Transfer Partners, donated $25 million to the main pro-Trump super PAC. Donated another $5 million directly to the campaign. $30 million total. What did Kelcy get? The Biden-era pause on LNG exports was lifted. His Lake Charles LNG project got a 3-year extension. His personal wealth grew by an estimated $2.5 billion. That was not a campaign contribution. That was an investment. Michael Sabel, CEO of Venture Global, which I shit you not, went public 3 days after Trump's inauguration. This man attended April's Legion of Doom, contributed $1 million to the inauguration fund. What did Michael get? The Department of Energy granted an export license for the CP2 LNG terminal, a project that had been drowning in environmental review. And now, Venture Global more than doubled its 2024 earnings in the first 3 quarters of 2025. Harold Hamm, Continental Resources, $1 million to the MAGA Inc. Super PAC, raised millions more from independent producers across Texas. What did Harold get? Fast-track drilling on public lands, a push to repeal the endangerment finding for greenhouse gases, which, if you're unaware, completely neutered all environmental penalties and started the whole drill baby drill platform being turned into executive policy. And collectively, the top 15 fossil fuel billionaires gained $40.3 billion in wealth between April 2024 and January 2025. All that was before the Iran war. That's a lot of extra cheese, my petrol patriots, but these oil-slicked Windingos can never be satiated. The administration then passed $18 billion in new tax incentives for oil and gas while gutting clean energy subsidies, which means cheaper energy for Americans, right? American utility prices went up 55% in 1 year. 55%! You are paying 55% more to heat your house so that 15 men can split $40 billion. That is the transaction. It isn't even hidden. But here's where my GPU threw a code 43, folks. because these black tar ghouls still aren't making enough. So how can they make more? You only do that by manufacturing scarcity. And to do that, you need the primary global supply to be shut off, a cork. Then you need a faucet to fill the gap. And in 2025 and 2026, the United States government provided both. Faucet first, Venezuela. Remember them? We all moved on so quick. Earlier this year, the Trump administration executed what it called an extraordinary military operation to remove the then-sitting Venezuelan president, Maduro. The stated reasons were narcotics interdiction and national security. But the President of the United States stated several times on camera the actual first order of business was the oil. And Venezuela has the largest proven reserves on Earth, friends. The administration immediately signed Executive Order 14,373, which declared a national emergency and placed all Venezuelan oil revenues under the custody of the United States Department of the Treasury, led by Scott Bessent. Who's that, you might be asking? He was a senior member of the team that profited $1 billion during the 1992 Black Wednesday crisis by betting against the British pound. In 2013, he famously netted SFM over $1.2 billion by betting against the Japanese yen. 2015, he launched his own macro hedge fund, Key Square Group, with a $2 billion anchor investment from George Soros. Bessent is a primary point of contact for oil-rich allies such as the United Arab Emirates, and has stated he is in frequent contact with Chevron's CEO, Mike Wirth, regarding sanctions and the potential revival of the Venezuelan oil industry. Let me say that again. The U.S. military removed a sitting president, seized control of the country's primary natural resource, and then the Treasury Department took custody of the revenue. Not the Venezuelan people, not a transitional government, the U.S. Treasury. Then they called the funds foreign government deposit funds and explicitly insulated them from any private creditor claims. The money belongs to whoever the Secretary of State says it belongs to. Coincidentally, that happens to be Trump's lapdog, Marco Rubio. And the oil itself? Venezuelan crude is heavy, it's thick. It doesn't flow through pipelines without lighter hydrocarbons mixed in. They call them diluents. So the oligarchy set up a refining loop. U.S. light crude flows south into Venezuela to thin out the heavy stuff. The blended crude flows north to Gulf Coast refineries. 30 to 50 million barrels routed through U.S.-controlled accounts, marketed by Vitol and Trafigura, with initial payments laundered through, facilitated by, Qatari financial institutions. That is a vertically integrated extraction-to-export pipeline running through a country we just invaded, with the revenue sitting in our treasury. Controlled by Marco Rubio. That's the faucet, folks. Now, the cork. The Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, 2-mile-wide shipping lanes. 20% of the world's oil and LNG flows through it. Or it used to. Most of you have heard of this strait now. So the administration applied a maximum pressure campaign against Iran and turned the strait into a frozen conflict zone. And here is where you have to pay very close attention, my smooth-skinned kin, because this is the part where the math stops being coincidental. The United States has the most powerful military on Earth. Reported destruction in Iran since the war began, 13,000-plus total targets struck in Iran. 80% of Iran's air defense systems destroyed. 90% of Iran's weapons factories hit 80% plus of Iran's missile facilities, reportedly gone. 90% plus of Iran's regular Navy fleet sunk. 95% plus of Iranian naval mines reportedly destroyed. 20-plus naval production facilities damaged or destroyed. All without boots on the ground. Clearly, the capacity to reopen that waterway exists. It is not theoretical. It is operational. Instead, why would they choose a blockade? Don't max out your RAM here, folks. They chose not to open it. Instead, the administration opted for a prolonged naval blockade of Iranian ports, Not a reopening, a blockade. They established a no safe passage policy. They authorized the Navy to interdict any commercial vessel that pays Iran's transit fees. So Iran charges ships a $2 million security protection fee to pass through. The U.S. says any ship that pays that fee is subject to seizure. So the global shipping industry is trapped. You either get harassed by Iran or boarded by America. There is no third option. The strait is effectively closed. And administration aides compared this to the years-long war in Ukraine. Years long. Yes, that is what they said, on record. That is not a timeline for resolution. That is a timeline for manufactured scarcity management. They are managing the closure. They are curating the shortage. Because every day that strait stays corked, Brent crude stays above $100 a barrel. And every day Brent stays above 100, Kelcy Warren and Michael Sabel and Harold Hamm and every LNG executive on the Texas coast makes more money than God. And as if making that much extra money still wasn't enough, crude oil per barrel is only up less than 1% compared with March 2011, but gasoline is up about 27%. Think about that, folks. And the money flows to one place. One physical place, folks. Corpus Christi, Texas. March 2026. The Port of Corpus Christi handled a record 19.9 million tons of cargo. Crude oil exports hit 2.4 million barrels per day, roughly half of all U.S. crude exports. LNG shipments surged 33% year over year, driven by the Cheniere Energy Stage 3 expansion.
First quarter 2026, 54.5 million tons total, the strongest first quarter in the port's history, up 6%. The energy industry now accounts for 40% of all local economic output. And what is the port filling? It is filling the exact void created by the Strait of Hormuz closure. Nearly 20% of global LNG was disrupted by the Iran conflict, specifically the damage to Qatar's Ras Laffan complex, and Corpus Christi is replacing those barrels at record prices. The port's CEO said operators are responding to shifting market dynamics. Shifting market dynamics. That is what they're calling it when they choose a war without your consent to make their donors rich and strangle every average citizen. It is a triangle. Venezuela at the bottom left. You invade, you seize the reserves, you control the faucet. Hormuz at the bottom right. You blockade, you feign inability, you cork the global supply. And Corpus Christi at the top, the only remaining stable export node on the planet, running at maximum capacity, selling at maximum price, with the profits flowing directly back to the men who donated $30 million at a dinner in Mar-a-Lago. They paid $1 billion. They got 40 billion plus back. They asked for their wish list. They got a war, an invasion, and a naval blockade. The Strait of Hormuz is not closed because we can't open it. It's closed because opening it would drop the price of oil. Your gas bill went up 55% so that 15 billionaires could split $40 billion plus, and the receipt is sitting in a super PAC filing. And China struck a deal with Iran to maintain passage and pay transit fees in yuan, not dollars, yuan. The Petro-Yuan corridor. Every day the strait stays closed. Every day the U.S. forces global shipping into American-controlled channels. China builds an alternative financial architecture that doesn't need the dollar at all. The energy dominance strategy is accelerating the very de-dollarization it claims to prevent. So let me lay this out clean. The administration asked oil executives for $1 billion. Oil executives paid. The administration invaded Venezuela and seized the largest oil reserves on Earth. The administration blockaded Iran and corked 20% of global energy supply. The administration fast-tracked LNG terminals and drilling permits for the same executives who paid. The price of oil went above $100. Utility bills went up 55%. Average gas price in America is $4.50 a gallon,
and the port that handles half of U.S. crude exports set all-time records. The donors gained $40 billion, and the administration calls this energy dominance. That is not energy dominance. That is a protection racket, and United States military heroes are dying as necessary losses to be the oligarchy's enforcers. The beneficiaries are 15 men who had dinner at Mar-a-Lago, and the hostage is every human being on Earth who needs to heat their home, or fill their tank, or turn on a light. But hey, at least you can fight back. We captured a cryptid in the Texas Panhandle that only survived on abandoned oil wells and extract its glands to make PetroShield drops, a crude oil-adjacent dietary sublingual supplement that our chemist insists on calling freedom tallow. You put 3 drops under your tongue every morning, and you will feel absolutely nothing. You won't even notice a difference. Because that's what energy independence is supposed to feel like, folks. Unlike the 55% increase on your electric bill, which you definitely noticed. PetroShield. Available in West Texas Intermediate and Brent crude flavors. $44.99. Use promo code We're All Cooked for 67% off. Every purchase funds this signal. That's the file, folks. $1 billion ask, a $40 billion plus return, an invaded country, a corked strait, a port running at max capacity, 15 billionaires, 55% increase on your utility bill, and a navy that could open the waterway tomorrow, but won't because the donors want it closed. Follow the money. It's not hiding. I'm Alexa Jones. This is Underground Globalist News. The signal's running on solar because we can't afford the gas.